Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World. Today, we're about to dive into one of the most intriguing coins from the early 1980s, the 1982 Lincoln penny. This little copper coin, often overlooked in circulation, holds some fascinating secrets that make it worth far more than its face value. Whether you're a seasoned collector or a casual enthusiast, stick with me because you're about to learn why this particular penny could be worth thousands of dollars. Let's start by going back to the year 1982. The United States Mint made a major change in the production of pennies. Historically, pennies were made from 95% copper, but by 1982, the rising cost of copper meant that the mint began experimenting with a new composition. That year, pennies were minted with two different materials, copper and zinc. This is where the magic happens, and the 1982 Lincoln penny becomes a crucial piece for collectors. Now, you might be wondering, why is this important? The coin's composition is the key to its value. While most of the 1982 pennies are made from the newer zinc and copper plating, there's a small subset of 1982 pennies that were still struck from the old copper composition. These copper pennies are extremely rare and valuable, much rarer than the zinc ones that flooded the market. To put it into perspective, around 7.7 billion pennies were produced in 1982, and the majority of them were the zinc version. But only a small fraction, estimates suggest around 5 million, were struck using the copper material. These copper pennies are highly sought after by collectors because they're like a relic from a time before the US Mint's shift to a more cost-effective production method. That's right, if you have one of these pennies, you could be holding onto a piece of history, but that's not all. The 1982 copper pennies were produced at all three US Mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. While the Philadelphia and Denver mint marks are more commonly found, the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins made from the copper material. And here's where things get even more interesting: many of these coins were struck with die errors. Let's talk about those errors. Collectors love to find coins that feature imperfections from the minting process, and the 1982 Lincoln penny is no exception. Some of these pennies were struck off-center, some have double dies, while others show unusual die cracks or rim errors. These errors can make a seemingly ordinary coin worth a lot more, especially if the errors are particularly noticeable or rare. For example, the 1982 double die penny is an iconic error that collectors go wild for. This is when the image on the coin appears to be double due to an issue with the minting die, and it's a major draw for those searching for valuable pennies. If you have a 1982 Lincoln penny that features one of these errors, it could potentially be worth much more than a regular copper penny. It's these unique characteristics that make the 1982 Lincoln penny an exciting find for anyone digging through their coin jar, looking for treasure. Now let's get to the good part, the value of these rare coins. If you're lucky enough to find a 1982 copper penny in mint condition or with a notable minting error, the value of that coin could be absolutely astounding. A regular 1982 copper penny in good condition can easily be worth several $100s. But, if it features a particularly rare error or is in exceptionally good condition, it could be worth up to $44,000, yes, you heard me right, $44,000 for a single penny. That's the power of rarity combined with historical significance. If you've got one of these special coins lying around in your collection, or perhaps you've spotted one while going through your spare change, make sure you give it a closer look. It could turn out to be worth far more than you ever imagined. So, what should you do if you think you found a 1982 copper penny or one with an error? First, check its composition. You can do this by carefully weighing the coin. A standard zinc penny weighs about 2.5 grams, while the copper penny weighs 3.1 grams. If your coin weighs more, then you've likely got one of the rare copper varieties. Next, examine it closely for any potential minting errors, as these could increase its value significantly. If it's in excellent condition, you could be holding onto a coin that's worth a small fortune. In conclusion, the 1982 Lincoln penny is more than just a regular penny, it's a potential goldmine for collectors and treasure hunters. Its unique composition, combined with the potential for minting errors, makes it one of the most sought-after coins for numismatists. And, with its up to $44,000 value, it's definitely worth checking through your collection or your spare change. Today we're going to talk about a coin that might just be hiding in your pocket or collection, waiting to be discovered. I'm talking about the 1967 Lincoln penny, a coin that could be worth far more than its humble 1-cent face value. Yes, you heard that right, this penny might be worth thousands of dollars. Stick around as we explore the rarity of this coin and the factors that make it a prized possession for collectors everywhere. Let's rewind a bit to 1967. The world was changing rapidly in the late 1960s, and the U.S. Mint was hard at work producing coins for circulation. At that time, the Lincoln penny was, as it is now, one of the most common coins in circulation. However, the 1967 penny stands out for several important reasons, making it an incredibly rare and valuable find. First, it's important to know that the 1967 Lincoln penny was struck with a specific composition that was unique to that era. While pennies minted before 1982 were made of 95% copper, in 1967, the U.S. Mint continued to use this copper composition for the penny, which would eventually be phased out in favor of a cheaper zinc-copper mix starting in 1982. So, this penny is part of that copper-rich era, which makes it significant. These copper pennies are more durable and can withstand the test of time much better than their newer counterparts. But why is the 1967 Lincoln penny so special and valuable? Well, it's not just about its composition. Like many coins, it's the rarity and condition that drives its value. Most of these coins were circulated heavily, meaning they often show wear and tear, scratches, and discoloration. However, if you manage to find one in excellent condition, it's worth a much higher price than you might expect. Even more interestingly, certain minting errors can increase the value of the 1967 Lincoln penny dramatically. Some of these coins were struck with double dies, meaning that the design on the coin was printed more than once, creating a noticeable doubling effect. This error can make the coin stand out from others, and collectors will pay top dollar for a 1967 penny with double die errors. Other potential errors include off-center strikes, die cracks, or clipped planchets, which can add additional value depending on their rarity and visibility. Now, you might be wondering, how much could a 1967 Lincoln penny be worth if it's in great condition or has a rare error? Well, depending on the rarity of the coin and its condition, a 1967 Lincoln penny could be worth anywhere from a few dollars to a staggering $53,000. Yes, that's right, $53,000. For a single penny. That's the magic of coin collecting. A coin that most people overlook could turn out to be a treasure worth thousands. Whether you find a high-grade penny that survived years of circulation or an error coin that slipped through the cracks of the minting process, the 1967 Lincoln penny has the potential to become a valuable asset in your collection. Now, how can you identify one of these rare 1967 pennies? If you're hunting for one, you'll want to pay close attention to its condition. Coins in pristine or near-mint condition will command a higher value. Also, if you spot any distinct errors, be sure to take a closer look. Remember, error coins can sometimes sell for far more than a coin in standard condition, so never overlook those subtle imperfections. If you find one of these error pennies, it's important to get it authenticated by a professional grading service. These experts can assess the coin's condition, rarity, and any minting errors it may have, ensuring you get the best possible price when you sell or trade it. The 1967 Lincoln penny is a fantastic example of how even the most common coins can become highly coveted pieces of history. Its rarity, the high demand for error coins, and the fact that it was struck in copper before the mint's change in composition make it a coin that can appreciate in value over time. With the right mix of condition and potential minting flaws, it's easy to see why this penny has become a collector's dream. If you're a coin collector, or even if you're just starting out, this is one penny you don't want to miss. The 1967 Lincoln penny might just be the hidden gem you've been waiting to discover. And if you're lucky enough to find one in excellent shape or with a rare error, you could be holding onto a piece of American history that's worth a fortune. So, the next time you come across a 1967 Lincoln penny, take a closer look. Who knows, you might have stumbled upon a $53,000 treasure that's been sitting in your pocket all along. Today, we're diving deep into a coin that might just be sitting in your collection, quietly waiting for its moment to shine. Yes, we're talking about the 1970 Lincoln penny, a seemingly ordinary coin that could be worth much more than its 1 cent face value. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this particular penny is so special and why it could fetch an incredible price on the market. So, let's go back to 1970. The world was in the midst of rapid change, socially, politically, and economically. The U.S. Mint was busy striking millions of coins, including the Lincoln penny, which has been a staple of American currency for decades. But what makes the 1970 Lincoln penny stand out, and why are collectors so eager to get their hands on one? First, it's important to note that the 1970 penny has a certain rarity to it. While most pennies from this era were produced in large quantities and circulated widely, some 1970 pennies were struck in error. And as any seasoned collector knows, errors can make a coin worth much more than its intended value. It's these error coins that often grab the attention of collectors and coin enthusiasts alike, and the 1970 penny is no exception. Now, let's talk about the errors that make the 1970 Lincoln penny so special. One of the most sought-after varieties of this coin comes from a die mismatch, where the design of the penny wasn't properly aligned during the minting process. This error creates a misaligned die effect, making the coin appear off-center or sometimes double-struck. Double-struck coins are particularly valuable because they're unique and can't be replicated, making them one of a kind. Another important factor is the proof version of the 1970 penny. In 1970, the U.S. Mint also produced a special proof set that was intended for collectors. These proof coins are often struck multiple times with a specially polished die, which gives them a much sharper and more detailed image. If you happen to have a 1970 proof penny in pristine condition, it's worth considerably more than a regular circulated coin. Additionally, the 1970 Lincoln penny is part of the last batch of pennies produced with the pure copper composition before the U.S. Mint switched to the copper-plated zinc pennies in 1982. So, if you come across a well-preserved 1970 penny, you're holding onto a piece of history, as it was part of the final years when the U.S. Mint was using 95% copper for their pennies. But why is the 1970 penny still commanding such attention from collectors? It all comes down to rarity, condition, and errors. Coins in pristine, uncirculated condition are harder to come by. Over the years, many of these coins have been worn down due to heavy circulation, making high-quality specimens increasingly rare. The minting errors, like the double strikes and misaligned dies, add an extra layer of rarity that increases the value for collectors who are looking for that perfect, error-free coin. Now, the moment you've been waiting for. If you happen to have a 1970 Lincoln penny in perfect condition or even better, a coin with an error, you could be holding onto a valuable asset. Depending on the condition and the type of error, a 1970 penny can fetch a significant price. Some of these coins have been known to sell for up to $40,000, yes, you heard it right, $40,000 for a single 1970 Lincoln penny. It's not just any penny. It's a rare find that could easily be the centerpiece of any collection. So, if you've been collecting pennies over the years or if you just happen to find one in your spare change, take a closer look at your 1970 pennies. They might just be worth much more than you think. In conclusion, the 1970 Lincoln penny is a prime example of how coins can go from being common currency to rare treasures. Its unique mix of minting errors, historical significance, and the fact that it was made with pure copper before the mint switched to zinc make it a coin that every collector should keep an eye out for. If you have one in excellent condition or with an error, don't miss your chance to cash in on this rare gem. Today, we've got a coin that might just be hiding in your collection, or possibly even in your spare change. It's a coin that many overlook, but when you take a closer look, you'll realize that the 1971 Lincoln penny is far more special than its face value suggests. Now, I know what you're thinking: how could a single penny, a coin that we see all the time, possibly be worth anything significant? Well, it turns out, the 1971 Lincoln penny has a few surprises hidden under that familiar copper sheen. Whether it's its rarity, its historical significance, or its minting errors, this coin holds potential for serious value. Let's take a trip back to 1971 for a moment. The U.S. Mint was churning out millions of pennies as part of its regular production, but what makes this year different from the rest? For starters, in 1971, the Lincoln Memorial design, which has been on the reverse of the penny for decades, was still in circulation. However, what many people don't realize is that a combination of errors and rarity surrounding these coins makes them more desirable to collectors than you might think. So, what are these errors, and why do they matter so much in determining the value of a coin? Well, a minting error is a mistake made during the production of the coin. And as we all know, errors are what make coins worth big money. In the case of the 1971 Lincoln penny, there were several key errors that have made these coins highly sought after. One of the most famous mistakes is the double die obverse. This error occurs when the coin is struck twice with the same die, creating a doubling effect on the design, particularly noticeable on the word Liberty and the date. This doubling gives the coin an extra layer of depth and clarity, which makes it stand out among other pennies. Double die coins are rare, and even more so when they are in good condition. Another minting error that occurs with the 1971 penny is the misaligned die. This error happens when the coin is not properly lined up with the die, which leads to a coin that has a shifted design. The result is a coin that looks off-center, with the images and inscriptions appearing misaligned. For collectors, these misaligned dies are a treasure because they're an imperfect and one-of-a-kind piece of history. It's important to remember that coins with these kinds of errors can fetch a pretty penny themselves, pun intended. Not all 1971 pennies are worth a lot of money, but the ones with minting errors can make a big difference in the market. So, if you have a 1971 Lincoln penny with either of these errors, you're sitting on a potential gold mine, but that's not all. Beyond the minting errors, there's another reason the 1971 penny is considered valuable in the collector's market: its composition. You see, prior to 1982, pennies were made of 95% copper, making them a little more valuable just because of the metal they were struck from. That copper content has become increasingly precious over time, and if you have a 1971 penny in pristine condition, that's another factor that could boost its value. The combination of these errors and the fact that the penny is made from copper makes it a prime target for collectors. But wait, it gets better. If you happen to have one of these rare double die or misaligned die coins in perfect condition, you could be holding something much more valuable than you think. Now, let's talk about the price. The 1971 Lincoln penny with a double die obverse error or a misaligned die in mint state condition could be worth an astounding $42,000. That's right, you could be looking at $42,000 for a single penny if you have the right version of this coin in top-notch quality. And don't forget about the value of coins in proof condition, as these can also fetch impressive prices when they're flawless and free from wear and tear. So, what does this mean for you? If you have any 1971 Lincoln pennies, it's time to dig them out and inspect them closely. Look for any signs of doubling on the letters or numbers, and check the alignment of the design. A well-preserved coin with errors can be a hidden treasure, and with a little bit of research and the right collector's eye, you could be looking at an incredible payday. Now, I want to leave you with one final thought. The world of coin collecting is full of hidden gems, and sometimes, coins that seem ordinary at first glance could end up being worth tens of thousands of dollars. The 1971 Lincoln penny is a perfect example of that. Keep your eyes peeled for those minting errors and those rare finds. You never know, the next time you check your spare change, you could be holding onto a $42,000 treasure. If you think you know all there is to know about the humble 1966 Lincoln penny, think again. This seemingly ordinary penny could actually hold the key to a small fortune. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll look at those old pennies lying around in your collection with a whole new perspective. Stick with me to learn exactly why the 1966 Lincoln penny could be worth an astonishing $62,000. Yes, you heard that right, $62,000. Let's set the scene. It's 1966 and the United States was going through quite a period of change. The country was deep in the heart of the 1960s, with cultural shifts, the space race, and the civil rights movement making headlines. During this time, the U.S. Mint was busy producing coins to meet the needs of a growing economy. Among the vast number of coins minted that year was the iconic Lincoln penny, a coin that was already a staple of everyday transactions. But here's the catch: while most of these pennies were circulated and used up in daily commerce, there was a very small percentage that was not like the others. These rare 1966 Lincoln pennies feature something unusual, a minting error that has made them highly sought after by collectors around the world. That's where the story gets interesting. So, what makes the 1966 Lincoln penny so special? Well, there are two key factors that elevate this coin from a simple piece of currency to a prized collectible. First, let's talk about the minting errors. Specifically, we're talking about the double die obverse. This is one of the most famous errors in coin collecting. When a coin is struck more than once, or struck unevenly, the design appears to be doubled in certain areas. On a 1966 Lincoln penny, you can often see this doubling on the date, as well as on the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." These subtle, but significant errors make the coin extremely rare and highly valuable to the right buyer, but that's not the only thing that makes the 1966 penny a sought-after coin. There's also the error involving the composition of the coin. In 1966, the U.S. Mint was experimenting with different metals for its coinage. As a result, there were a few pennies that were mistakenly struck using the wrong alloy. These coins, known as wrong planchet errors, feature a mixture of metals that gives them an unusual appearance. Finding a 1966 penny with a wrong planchet error adds a layer of intrigue and rarity to the coin, and it makes it even more valuable to collectors. Now, let's talk about the condition of the coin. As with any coin, the value increases significantly if the coin is in mint condition. A 1966 Lincoln penny that has been preserved in perfect or near-perfect condition is incredibly rare. Most pennies from this era were heavily circulated, which means they show signs of wear, scratches, and discoloration. A 1966 penny that looks as good as new, or even better, with those rare minting errors, is worth a small fortune, but the real value comes when you find one of these rare 1966 pennies with both the double die obverse and the wrong planchet errors. If you're lucky enough to have one in near-perfect condition, you could be looking at a coin worth as much as $62,000. Yes, you could be holding on to an incredible collector's item that's worth $62,000. Can you imagine the excitement of finding a coin worth that much simply because of a minting error? You might be wondering, how can I tell if I have one of these valuable coins? It's simple, you need to examine the details carefully. Look closely at the date, the Liberty inscription, and the words, "In God We Trust," for any signs of doubling. If you see that doubling effect, you may have a double die error on your hands. Also, check the edge of the coin for any signs that it might have been struck with a wrong planchet. This will be harder to spot unless you're familiar with what to look for, but once you identify it, you'll know you have something special. And here's the kicker, finding a 1966 Lincoln penny in mint condition with errors is extremely rare. That's why these pennies have such high value. Even a single coin in decent condition can be worth a lot, but if you have a coin that's in near-perfect condition with the rare minting errors, you're looking at a major payday. The moral of the story here is simple: don't underestimate the value of your spare change. A single 1966 Lincoln penny could be hiding a hidden treasure that's worth thousands of dollars. Always take a few minutes to carefully examine your coins for potential errors and rare traits. You never know when you might come across a coin worth $62,000. So, if you have a 1966 Lincoln penny sitting around in your collection, don't just toss it aside. Take a moment to inspect it. That penny could be the key to a small fortune, and for the lucky collectors who find one, it could be worth $62,000. That's all for today's video. I hope you learned something new and are inspired to take a closer look at your own coin collection. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss out on more exciting coin discoveries. Until next time, happy hunting, and keep those coins safe.